You know, sometimes it's best just to hit record before you can even think of anything. Just hit it as quickly as possible. I almost think that's what Ugo DG was doing here. Welcome back, everyone. Artist Journal, May 13th, 2024. Broadcasting from deep within the internet, which some would say is like a nervous system. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. On a sunny, beautiful day in Berlin, Germany. So with that, let's not waste any time so I can get a little bit of vitamin D before it disappears. You cannot take it for granted out here, the sun. And just like you can't take for granted all the great art we're seeing, like this work here by Ugo Digi, which there's a lot to say about it. Let me just see if there's a title or anything here. Let's just see the deets. Still lifes, exactly. Not still lives, as my mom corrected me on an early show. It is still lifes. Have been a classic exercise for painters, but as a digital artist, I reinterpret them. And banana, grape, apple, banana. And so this is super interesting to me for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's beautiful. It's a variation on something we've seen, but it actually seems to be pushing it further. And what I mean by that is, I was trying to find the artist at the Neue Nationalgalerie. Was it the Neue? No, Hamburger Bahnhof here, where I'd gone to, like, I think it was Minimal Art Show, where it wasn't Donald Judd, but it was one of these artists along those lines, maybe in the 60s or early 70s, doing word art, and then, you know, the classic draw a tree with the word tree. So there is like a history of doing this sort of thing, and if you can't see it, maybe I'll actually zoom in quickly here, just so you can see what's going on. You see how it says banana there in yellow, and then it's repeated to make the banana, and it says grape to make grapes? You know, brilliantly framed. Actually, each grape, and there's apple to make apple. Like, there is a history of, and I only know it visually. I don't know it like I feel like I know the dates a little bit. There was a lot of experimentation along these lines, I think, in the early 70s. And what I like about this work by Ugo Digi is it's not just a digital rehash. It actually pushes it further using digital tools. And what I mean by that is all of these, you know, the banana is almost scratched in. And let me actually zoom in a little bit more. The banana is almost scratched in here, as if the word is being used as almost like a brush. And further, the experiments that I've seen, and I'm not an expert, you know, I've seen some word art, but I hadn't seen it quite like this. Again, it's kind of more painterly here. And the word art I had seen, say, at Hamburger Bahnhof here in Berlin, the Contemporary Art Museum, Neue Nationalgalerie, I think you'd call the Modern Art Museum, and Hamburger Bahnhof. Hamburger means citizen, by the way, as far as I remember. And Hamburger Bahnhof is more the Citizens Railway Station, which has been turned into an art gallery. They did the same thing in Paris to that very, very famous Impressionist museum, the Musée d'Orsay. So let me just remove that. That is what I'm trying to do. So the works I'd seen at Hamburger Bahnhof looked like they were done with a typewriter, right? And we have seen some works that maybe start to go overlap like this, but not purely digital works, and this is where I'm going with this, is the color. Usually it's a black and white kind of thing from what I've seen. And obviously I haven't seen everything, so who knows, but what I like about this is there's variation in the color, almost like a kind of shading, or almost as I guess, you know, or just variation in the color of the banana. Here you have darker grape, you know, lighter grape, apple here, you know, almost to create light, which is something that is a bit more digital. Because if we were trying to do this physically, think of how much work it would be. How would you do it? I mean, would you use an inkjet printer, right? But you'd still have to make this like this first, and then maybe you'd print it out, or maybe you'd screen print with a different color, the word apple, but are you going to do that with this small word? And it's kind of hard to screen print small like that. So if you follow what I'm saying, maybe you'd do a stamp. That's probably the best strategy here, right? You'd do a stamp, and then you'd finish it. That's probably how you'd do it. And then you'd change the color. I don't know if that's ever been done quite like this, so physically. So a really cool work, and there's something else I really like, which is what I sometimes get tempted to call the video game perspective here, which is, you know, this unique perspective that we see with the grapes that are almost hanging off of this wonderful counter that is cropped here, but then we see the edge here in the angle, creating, you know, more of a, you might say, a persuasive space alongside this really interesting dark line. You can see, like, it's part of probably the program that Ugodigi is using, which creates these frames with light, right? And so we see these cubes, really, that are being built. We see it also in the frames here of these works. And so what is this, right? So we see the frames as well. And what I love about this work, finally, and thank you, Ugodigi, for posting in the community. Kind of funnily enough, I was getting the show ready, and I always check the community before doing everything, but this was already first, and then I saw it posted in the community, which was awesome. It made me very happy. So thank you for posting it there. I'm thrilled. Works like this, getting posted in the community, is awesome. And interesting variation on the stem here. There's what is going on was kind of the final thing I wanted to mention here, which is we have this picture, one could argue, this framed picture of an apple. We have a picture of a banana, and then we have each individual grape in a frame, which I think is quite brilliant because, and what I was going to say is the image itself is dictating the needs of the image, the needs of the artist are dictating the composition. The artist goes, I think I need a black background here because this red on the beige doesn't seem to be working, but I want to make it like kind of an interior in this counter. Maybe I put a frame around this thing and I, you know, just make it like kind of like a frame picture here, and then I can keep the black background, which I like with the banana and the apple, even with the grape. And then going from there, trying to make this image work. So then, okay, you know, like just there's something you might say irrational about the grape, all these frames over top of each other making the grapes, right? And this is what I'm saying. It's almost like the artist has certain requirements that are trying to be met, you know, make the contrast nice with the red on the black, the yellow on the black, the purple on the black, and then solving, you know, almost like a math equation, like a formula. You know, and then solving for black background, yellow banana on black background in interior. How do I solve for that? Okay, let's just frame everything, and it seems to work. So the image creates kind of a logic, so to speak. There's an internal logic here. The reason I love art at the end of the day is you can kind of put anything on there. It can be any world you want, even you could argue impossible worlds like this. But nevertheless, you can kind of make it work there's an internal logic here. Like this may be an impossible image to a certain degree that, you know, one would see in real life. But I'd argue it still has a logic. Interestingly, there is an internal integrity, so to speak. So, you know, and that's just beyond the actual words here. And then, you know, then you put on top that this is really interesting, arguably innovative word art. And you really are starting to get somewhere. And this beautiful, arguably simple, but sophisticated image is what we are left with. Quite a work, quite an accomplishment by Ugodigi. And I brought up, just out of curiosity, the page of Ugodigi. And, you know, first thing, life is made for experimenting. And Ugo looks like a fairly young artist. I'm artist, collector, jeweler, founder and curator of OK Digital, on Tezos since May 2021. And of course, we've seen a lot of these works here. Looks like the same software. And then maybe just experimenting. And the power of just letting go and trying something different here. And there, I think it's up here, there's Ugo Digi. Check it out. Excited, as I would be if I made this work. This looks great. This is a fun, exciting work. So awesome work from Ugo Digi. I haven't seen it minted anywhere. I think just posted on X. Let's see where it goes. Very cool. And of course, Ugo has a lot of work on Tezos. I think on Zora too. This horse, I think there was a variation on the horse, if I'm not mistaken, on Tezos, which did fabulously. Has done really well on Zora. This was kind of interesting too. Just while we're on Ugo Digi, I was on Ugo's page after seeing the awesome work, and I thought this was an interesting post here before we get into our comments. Commenting on Anne Loramy, a curator at Super Rare, crypto art hasn't been selling well because crypto bros have been broke for 2 years. Let me just make this bigger so everybody can read. And then Ugo Digi replying, my sales are good from 3 years. And this is kind of what I keep saying here. I mean, it depends. Probably Anne Loramy is probably talking about larger sales, right? But I keep going, this is, even now, I'm still amazed at the resilience of the market. Works are still selling. Artists are still making work, and they're selling, and they're making, some people, are making a living still. In the global south, Argentina, Brazil, so just kind of an interesting point from Ugo Digi. And of course, yeah, so let's continue here. So comments from last show. I was going to say, not just crypto bros, of course. I mean, Cosimo kind of got in trouble for that. Just talking about the, suggesting that it was only guys who were buying the JPEGs. I mean, you could argue. And I don't think Anne Loramy, it's more than crypto bros who are buying art. Let's continue, though. Human Boy Vibes. Let me just reload this up to make sure we can read everything. Human Boy Vibes, great episode as always, and I really appreciate you including my art. Of course, and we'll see, Human Boy's at around 320,000, if I'm not mistaken, great, including my art. So Human Boy has a massive breakthrough here. The response has totally blown me away, and to your comment on these big reach posts and increasing your followers, I've also went up in followers over 1K since the posts went pretty wild. And you know what's interesting about that and awesome? Human Boy, I think I got a few subscribers out of that, Human Boy. So we have this feedback loop going on because I think I got some subscribers on the show. I noticed my YouTube kind of perked up because you had retweeted the show a couple of times. Like the first show and then the second show that you're in, you tweeted. And I think that actually, because you have new followers, I think that actually helped, whoever was on your page, which happened to be me at the time, or the show. So that is awesome. So everybody helping everybody. And as the title implies, most seem to be from out of the bubble or out of our bubble. I think it may pop before we know it. You may be onto something here. You may be onto something, Human Boy. So congratulations again. And again, I kind of go back to this post here. I think things are going swimmingly over here. And as long as Human Boy can put out a artwork online and it get over 300,000 views, whole bunch of new followers, this scene's doing just fine, I would argue. So anyways, interesting comment, though, from Anne Loramy and Ugo Digi and Human Boy. And actually, did we see Kiro's comment? Thanks for showing my video game glitch artwork. And yes, it's hardware. It's a circuit bent. Yeah. So Kiro, is doing hardware glitch ROM, which is pretty cool. It's a circuit bent modified Sega Mega Drive 2 with a bunch of knobs and switches to glitch out the ROMs that are in cartridge that has been modded to have an SD card. So real that are in a cartridge that has been modded to have an SD card. So pretty rad. Kiro's works are hardware glitch ROMs, which is really cool. Just comments on Twitter here. And again, thank you for the awesome response last episode. Zuck Markerberg, yo, Twitter's hella friendly. Comment as I was commenting on Twitter being a friendly place, actually, and some, despite the reputation, it can be friendly. As we all know, it doesn't need to be, but it can be. Zuck agreeing. Lex, art is dope. Hair looks cool. Is that an 808 book in your library? You know what this is? This is what Lex is referring to. That's like maybe I would bring that down, but I'm worried my little construction is going to come down. That's a shoebox. I have Pumas that are 808s. They're overworn now, so I don't wear them anymore, but I at least had Pumas, and that's the box they came in. Special edition. Maybe I can bring that up. Puma 808 shoes. Special edition. Yeah, these are them. They're a little loud. They're a little loud, but, some people see them, though, and they go, wow. So, yeah, there was 808. I guess you can still get them. That was about 4 years ago, maybe. I kept the box, and I thought it would be a nice prop here in the background. I also put old comics in there, old German Spider-Mans that I sometimes practice my German on. So, fresh. Yeah, awesome. So, thanks for asking, Lex. Yeah, no, I think it's great in the set here. Chrome Void, I think people are still posting stills of GIFs on Instagram. So we're discussing this because adding multiple images causes the work to appear in people's feeds again. People are still posting stills of GIFs on Instagram because adding multiple images causes the work to appear. If the viewer sees the GIF and scrolls without flipping to slide 2, oh, that's right, Instagram will show the post again. So basically saying increasing visibility. So Chrome Void is saying, put it this way, I had to do it because I had a GIF, I think it was for one of these Solana sunset kind of beach works I was doing. And I found that when I uploaded the .movie, because I think you can post GIFs in the comments. I'm not sure if you can upload GIFs yet. And so you have to often upload the movie, but when you do that, it turns into a reel. And so my solution, I was like, oh, that's why people are doing it, because if you start if you make a slideshow, in other words, 2 images, and the second is still, then it just makes it a slideshow like a regular image, but you get to keep your movie in the first field. So Chrome is suggesting that also increases visibility, which might also have been the reason. It's possible. I was doing it just so it didn't become a reel. Little Cakes, thanks for the mention, Pocobelli. I'm always around if you want me to talk. So discussing Little Cakes, getting the interview. Who was it that did it? What were their names? We mentioned them last show there, right at the start. Anyways, we'll bring on Little Cakes in a few weeks once to breathe, let the interviews breathe a little bit. Maybe in a month or so, Little Cakes. I will reach out to you in the next few weeks. So thank you for that. Awesome to hear. Burku or Byram, great to hear from you. Wojak, nice to catch it first. Awesome to hear from you, Wojak. And Sigma X, thank you. And Silva Santos, today's Pokebelly show is awesome. Thank you for the mention and for your words. I've tried to be better and better in each piece, and your feedback makes me see that I'm on the right path. Totally awesome. And indeed you are, as far as I'm concerned, Silva. And yeah, each one seems to be more precious as they are released. And look, Goyong Arts, who we started the show with, thank you so much. The sale will be started on May 14th. Manifold have an update, so we postponed for a week. I'm really happy because you like all the pieces. Indeed I do, Goyong, and awesome to hear from you. Yeah, it's as I was telling you in the last show, as I was saying, any one of those works, all your work could always start this show. That's why I'm always thrilled to see a Goyong work, because they're all so beautiful. Rebecca Rose, Goyong is amazing, indeed. Jack Digital, great to hear from you. So thanks, everybody. And here's the just a quick scan through the community. So really awesome to see Uko Digi. What a surprise for me to see that after I had already put all the tabs lined up, going to the final thing, go to the community, and there's Ugo Digi. Me, Retratito, nice to be here. Thank you. Welcome. And very cool textures here. me. Very cool textures. And Kiro, and this is a work by Datura, which I thought I might have had, but I included it again in this show because we haven't seen much of Datura, and I wasn't sure, so I put it in. Ilyazura Night Mixed Media, so just nice work, looks like physical. Very cool. Alex Dronov, 3D abstract artwork. Seen a little bit of that. Yeah, almost, I was thinking of Sarah Kretschmer. Also here. So very cool. I think some AI, maybe some digital collage perhaps. And Austin Studio Wall, so very cool, looking like using the spray paint here. It almost looks like Batman, Bat Signal here. And X-Follow Ninja, thank you for the post. And Kel's, beautiful piece by Kel1. The artist has such a cool name too, awesome. Beautiful colors here, Kel's. Beautiful. So a digital artwork looks like it's based on a photo by Kel's. So great to hear from Kel's. And here, I think I brought this up actually. Did we already look? So let's just see here. How many? 316,000. So 317,000 views. I mean, incredible. So congrats to Human Boy. And yes, that's exactly where we were going next here. So Unknown Collector. Will we ever reach the point where not the colorful, easy digestible, easily understandable, at least seemingly art is popular in this space? You know, I think we have a wonderful balance, actually. So Unknown Collector asking, is the art too simple in the space? Or will Web3 forever be the antithesis of the contemporary art world, so to say? You know how I think of it? You see, as I like to call Unknown Collector or Unknown Collector, the way I think of it is contemporary art world kind of got too full of itself, so to speak, and its own, forgive the haircut is in 8 days. I'm actually was thrilled to see it's only 8 days away. The contemporary art world kind of got too abstract, too conceptual, what I like to call over-sophisticated. And so what I think happened in the digital, with what we see in Web3, with the financial engine of crypto, is finally the new generation, younger people started to go, none of this other stuff speaks to me. And I was just looking at, a review of another local museum here, Martin Gropius Bow. And the review was like, nice architecture in the museum, but this contemporary art stuff doesn't speak to me at all. Just like a random review. So for what that's worth. But I think it speaks to this idea that art has lost, art is to a certain degree for everybody. Art is like a major kind of part of the human experience. And maybe some people are more focused on music, some people are more focused on visual art, maybe some people are more focused on novels and poetry. But it's kind of an important part, one could argue an essential, elemental part of the human experience. And what I think happened with contemporary art is it stopped filling that function for the common person. It just got too abstract, too over-sophisticated. The humor got bad, frankly. I would argue the humor wasn't funny, even though it was acting like it was funny. But overall, the crowd just wasn't buying it. So to overgeneralize. So I think that's what happened here with the digital art space. Here's a quote-unquote new medium. It's been around for 100 years almost now, digital art, or 75, let's call it, however long it's been, 70 years. So here's a new medium, but a new generation and people, again, who grew up with video games. So they just finally, they were just starting to make their own art, I would argue. And they actually, and a lot of them started, these kids, frankly, started to have a lot of money from 2021 or even buying crypto earlier, riding one of the greatest, if not the greatest bull market of all time in crypto. And all of a sudden they could afford, and there's not much to spend your money on other than to stake your crypto, maybe make some interest on it, lend it out. But there's not really that much to do. So all of a sudden art became the obvious thing. So it was the perfect storm where, so you have where a native, art movement could develop from. There was the financial backing really to back it. And so I guess I don't agree with the premise. I think I think, but I understand where it's coming from. Because a lot of, especially what I sometimes call mainstream crypto art, could be considered to be oversimplistic, right? And it's often that's the stuff that the people from outside the crypto scene know and are aware of, that they go, well, we don't need to take this seriously at all. Because even look, you're putting the Bored Ape Yacht Club in your precious book, and yeah, maybe, was it Tashin? Maybe Tashin is publishing this thing, but it's still like the Bored Ape Yacht Club from the perspective of the outsider, regardless of what people think of that. But they see the art and they just go, thank you, no thanks, but no thanks, okay, is really the reaction, whether, the general response. And then, so let's continue reading here. Contemporary art world often focuses on themes such as identity, politics, society, and technology. Reflecting and critiquing the complexities of the modern world, artists try to be reflective and disruptive. I would argue we do see this on Tezos. And actually, I think we see it beyond Tezos now. I think, interesting, like Tezos takes a lot of criticism. But I would argue the Web3 art landscape has been transformed by what happened on Tezos. I would argue during the bear market, like now it's kind of fused with what happened on Tezos and what, might be called crypto art or traditional crypto art or the 2021 heroes. That's all been kind of fused because the art has been so strong that started on Tezos but has become multi-chain. You look at artists like Ratcloak, who we're going to see a couple of works from. And on and on. You like Martin Bruce. Maybe people who started on Tezos, I assume Martin Bruce or maybe Ethereum, who knows, but, kind of more out of that indie kind of art side of things, very avant-garde. Martin Bruce, Nov 1914, I would argue they're very complex, sophisticated artists. That I would happily show a Martin Bruce, and we'll have a variation on the bear, by the way, a little foreshadowing here. We have a variation on the bear this episode, which I'm very excited, which I would put beside anything, frankly, that I'm seeing in the museums these days. And sometimes there's great stuff. So let's continue. Here, art is popular that is light and fun, approachable for the average person in society. It's easily digestible on the first look, at least. Narratives are more important than anything. And maybe this is generally true, but I wouldn't say it's exclusively true. And that's probably true anywhere. Look at pop music. Is pop music the best music ever? This, of course, is based on who is looking at, writing about, and buying art here. The art is popular, reflects those who are in control of the market. There is a kind of insider feel to the original, 2021 side of things. Like, I would agree. There does seem to be that. But again, I think the art wins in the end. And so it doesn't matter, I would argue. It doesn't matter. Did you make similar observations? So anyway, great questioning from Unknown Collector. Shout out to Unknown Collector. Interesting questions there. Getting to some of the kind of more softer points of this, poking at some of the more softer aspects of this entire scene. Limbo, if David Lynch, Jodorowsky, Scorsese, Romero, Cronenberg had to choose a chain in the current environment where to mint their work, they'd mint on Tezos. Interesting, kind of speaking to the culture, almost what I was just saying to a certain degree about Tezos. I'm not entirely convinced. But that is kind of like, you could argue that's somewhat their natural home, as a kind of like, because they're kind of indie filmmakers to a certain degree, when at least the way, they're very popular and successful, maybe not, but I guess they're not indie filmmakers, Scorsese clearly not, but their way of being, their artistry kind of has an indie vibe to it. You might say even David Lynch, they appeal to the counterculture, Cronenberg. So I think that's Limbo's point. Interesting comment. And here, Pablo, physical events are incredibly powerful. for spreading the digital art ecosystem. They offer a unique opportunity for participants to engage in shared human experiences, which are crucial for the growth of the digital art ecosystem. And here's MoMA with Rafik Anadol's work, AI artwork. Beyond just showcasing artwork, these gatherings facilitate meaningful connections, dialogue, and a deeper appreciation for digital art's cultural significance. I quite agree with this. It's always good as an artist, I would argue, and I think Pablo is making a similar, analogous argument. It's always a good idea to make physical artwork if you're a digital artist. It just shows you have range, you're not pigeonholed, you're not some person with a mouse, just from a purely PR perspective. And also, I would argue it makes you a better artist, because then all of a sudden you can go back and forth, you can see how different mediums work. It really does give you more intellectual range, I would argue, not just kind of the range of your work expanding, but really the range of your perspective. So I do think it's a very important thing to do. Once we introduce physicality, we create space for discussing the concept and narrative behind the work. The aura, which is interesting, of artworks is felt in a tangible way, something digital alone can't replicate. It's an interesting question, but there is something to be said about the real-life magical work of art. And I have to agree, there's something to be said for it. I think digital has its own... I wouldn't say there's no aura, though, in digital alone, but I take the point. As humans, we thrive on these tangible interactions, which is why careful consideration of how digitally native works are showcased in the physical world should be a top priority for digital artists. Yeah, I think it's an important priority, and yeah, it should be. I would argue if you're here for the long haul as an artist, you're a lifer. Yeah, you should have a plan for making some work physical. I'm thinking of what if Ugo, this probably wouldn't be too crazy to make physical, and what would this look like physical? We were mentioning the stamp here. You could also potentially screen print this, like maybe there's 10 or 12 colors here. It'd be an ambitious screen print, but could you imagine? I mean, that would be pretty amazing. So working physically, and here, remember Kayla Mattis, who we were looking at, the Weaver. This is an early work by Kayla Mattis, who's actually a pretty young artist, 1989. I guess 35, 10 years younger than me. Kayla Mattis, and doing a benefit for the Venice Family Clinic Art Walk. So I assume Venice, California. And so this is at Bonhams. So this is still at auction if you're interested. It's actually a kind of an important work by her. It's one of the first where, as you see here, AIM Chat's test, where she starts using internet digital memeing and starting bid $2,000 and expected, I guess, for $3,000 to $5,000. So interesting. 21 by 14 inches, half a meter by 35. So pretty cool there. Available at Bonhams. Skullt takes spreading the good word about on-chain assets, so going completely in the opposite direction here than physical. What about just purely on-chain assets on Cardano? Over on the other app, there's a Cardano channel. Not too many Cardanoans, though. So interesting. Not too many people talking about Cardano and art, and I guess there's a whole on-chain art thing going on there. I remember coming across this a couple of months ago, and someone, maybe it was Skullt perhaps, who was saying, there's a lot going on over there. So just kind of interesting. Cider. And lots of commentary here. It goes against the whole idea of picking a prompt, but in my opinion, to make Botto look and feel better, as dumb as it sounds for the project, the AI should choose everything itself. May that be the prompt, what will be minted, anything. So if you don't know what Botto is, Cider is referring to Botto, which is pretty well known in the digital art space as this decentralized autonomous artist. So basically a DAO, as far as I understand, I've never worked with it myself as one of the community members. A DAO guides the artwork here. So here are works created by Botto. Botto creates works of art based on collective feedback from the community. Our participation is what completes Botto as an artist. And I think if you buy the Botto coin, then you have a say, then you have a vote, let's say, and maybe the more, the more coins you have, maybe the more you influence the work. And some of these works, we were just looking at one last episode, they often sell for like 20, 30, sometimes $20,000, $30,000, sometimes a whole lot more. So they were looking for feedback. So Cider was saying, rather than the community doing it, it sounds like maybe the AI should choose everything. The many times I've seen a bad prompt being chosen by a human just makes me sad. It is predictable, the way it works and what prompt will be picked. Predictable art is what I mostly disliked, and being able to choose between 10 works is unflattering. And indeed, predictability, unpredictability, as I like to say, is the hallmark of good art. My classic example I would give of this is if, I remember, and nothing against Lady Gaga, but I think the first time I heard her was like 2005, whenever she was coming out and with her music for the first time. And I remember never having heard it before. I knew what the next line was going to be, or at least what the words were going to rhyme with. And that's an example for me of overly predictable art, right? I don't know how it generally works, but what happens to the other prompts Ben shows? If they are not picked, does that mean that they are not good? Will they be minted? So talking about everything that's left to the side, why would it even make the prompt in the first place? I could be wrong on how it works. If I am, maybe the marketing should be changed. So this is responding to Carter, who's soliciting what's something you think either Botto or the DAO can improve. And so Cider weighing in. And here, so this is... check this. Speaking of AI, we've seen Helio Santos's paint plotting tools, homemade paint plotting tool, which is quite beautiful, what we see here. And this is an AI DCN 7R, Danny's on Fire, who I'm sure I follow here. As you'll see, it is, maybe I don't. Well, make sure I follow. AI landscape painted in an XY drawing plotter in oil, graphite, and ink on cotton paper. So using AI with the paint plotting tools here, and usually, I don't know if this is a real scene. I kind of suspect it's not. There's kind of, oftentimes people will have art, within these kind of settings, templates. So all to say, AI and paint plotting, I would argue or even pen plotting, which does take a certain amount of programming from what I understand. I've never done it. They do seem to make a nice, marriage, so to speak, between the two. And here's just an interesting example. Looks quite interestingly painted, doesn't it? Like nice brushwork, nice mark making. What is this sky? All right, just interesting. And here, speaking of Helio Santos, who I'm sure I follow. Okay, phew. So again, that is a X glitch where it says I'm not following all these great artists here. Heliodoro Santos, morning. So here, this is, I think I brought this up big. So this looks like paint plotting and then going back to digital. We're saying digital artists going physical, and then you can go back to digital here. Is another kind of, I call it traveling through the mediums, going back, to digital to painting and back. And you come across some pretty interesting ideas when you do this. It gets pretty experimental. So again, this looks like a paint plotting landscape that has been, for lack of better terms, digified. Continuing on, John Cates, and showcasing some works from the digital art exhibition at Art Gong. Pink Zhuang featured Somfei art and music, and now Somfei's art returns for the physical curation at the Night Art Fair in Taipei, Taiwan. So I think this is John Cates' show, if I'm not mistaken. So here's one of the works, this beautiful Buddha by Somfei, which I think we've seen before, and here are a couple other works. Guru Hyena, and also, who is this? Punks Distorted. So just some works from the show in Taiwan by John Cates, a renowned glitch artist. Here's Demon Ego in the studio here. So how cool is this? Nice studio and Demon Ego at work. Really nice studio. I love the little toy guns there. And here is Ile, who, of course, I follow, playing with Michael Micasso, new toy, Your Dot Garden, created a landscape and screenshot. Added WC color filter in Photoshop, so much fun. So playing around here again, you wonder, what would this look like? Nice textures here. What would this look like physical? And interesting texture in the background there too. So all just very interesting. And finally, before we get into the main show, there's also this energy artist support artist. So there is, and I may have spread some of these out throughout the show, but I put a few here. There's a cool show that has started on Zora, this energy artist support artists. And I brought up a few highlights, but you can see the works that have been posted so far here. And of course, Sabato with Bellini, I think he was saying in a tweet, or they were saying in a tweet, Madonna and Child, but here a soccer player, and not exactly sure over here what's happening, maybe a singer of some kind. So anyways, cool Deluxe Paint 4 work by Sabato. Here's Santiago, Central Dogma Love Story. Looks like AI artwork, pretty detailed. And also, here's Salawaki. And I just love this new Maximize feature here. And there's the fish. Protect your artist friends from potential scammers. Call 1-600-PROTECT. Indeed. So cool short, actually, by nice short work by Salawaki. Very cool. And here's Burka Bayram inside Pandora's Box. So you can check out the whole show on Zora. And of course, Burka Bayram, prominent artist on Tezos. Here's Martin Bruce, and here's the work I was mentioning before. So you might remember the bear. The bear got so much love when I remember I started the show maybe 2 months ago, I'm guessing, with the bear, and I got a ton of comments, even private messages. That bear is awesome. Even friend of mine in Munich was messaging me, and everybody loves the bear. So here, Martin Bruce has provided another version, and it kind of looks like it's based on a physical, doesn't it? Interestingly. And of course, Martin Bruce, a great artist, goes back and forth, as far as I understand, between physical and digital. And these are the sorts of results you can get. You can't even tell. It's ambiguous. Is this physical or digital? Is this a photo or is this a digital file? Kind of looks like a photo of a work, but you really can't tell. Interesting ambiguity. So this is on Zora, a free mint, 6 minted so far. You have time, 28 days to go. Cider with a beautiful Coca-Cola Classic can, processed a la Cider here, who of course I follow. And there we go. So anyway, beautiful work here by Cider. As you can see, all the little noise and done with Cider's process, doing an object we all have seen. Interesting green background there too. Beautiful. So beautiful work by Cider. Here's Dan Control. Let's see if we can make this slightly bigger. And all this old technology, this was just posted on Instagram. I wasn't quite sure where, I don't remember seeing it, and I'm not sure which blockchain. I checked a few of them, but I couldn't find where this was. Anyway, different phones, computers, screens, TVs, old technology, beautiful work by Dan Control, who likes to reuse elements, right? We see the phone here repeated and then creating these compositions. Here's another one, actually, by Dan Control, Steamboat Willie. We saw a lot of them at the start of the year when, of course, Steamboat Willie went beyond, was no longer copyrighted. It had expired. The copyright had expired. So here's Steamboat Willie done by Dan Control, interestingly doing a cartoon. And here we're going to see on Zora a work by Dan Control where elements being reused. So Dan had done, I assume this is a sheep, and had done a pig in different works, and then now is starting to reuse those elements in a very witty way. Let's put the head of the pig on the sheep, and almost it becomes like a commentary, accidentally, one could argue, on, genetic modification, but really it's just a digital artist having fun. But really cool work. Again, reusing elements in a very edgy way. Speaking of edgy, Nov 1914 experimenting here, Despedida, and this sold to Somfe, who's been collecting a lot. 10 Tezos, edition of 1, and here it is. You see, of course, Nov 1914, what I loosely call a gradient artist, similar to Dan Control, but interesting kind of outlines going on here, just a different kind of style. Or and put it this way, this is more the traditional style here. This is closer, and as you see, that other one has maybe more space. Something's going on here. More volume is maybe what's going on here. There always is a little bit of volume. You see it in the gradient in the frame below. And that's the only part of the frame that remains. So all to say, pretty interesting. And here, this almost looks like, you know, the ancient Roman, that famous river statue of the river god. Or also in Le Déjeuner sur l'Elbe, one of the figures, kind of that's almost the pose. And you see, you know, boiled down to this very minimal head, hands, and like the 2 feet as one gradient. Radical work here. This is also an edition of 1 Klima, and this sold for 10 Tezos, and that sold in an hour. So, Nov 1914 continuing to sell almost everything out. Edmarola, Dr. Asmir finds a way out. So almost like a novel here, Chapter 3, A Way Out. There's something you need to know what. So as you can see, a whole text here. Let's see if we can show that. So almost like having the feeling of a detective story. And here you see a wonderfully beautiful Edmarola work and everything. So this is full size. And of course, just another beautiful improvisation and interesting small size, you could argue, and almost compression on the pixels here. Take the body, fly, and this almost looks like a map in the top right, which sometimes you see in some on your screen sometimes. Maybe is that a Google Maps type thing? Not sure. And just interesting pixels here at the top of the head. Just beautiful experimentation. Really kind of looks like a landscape. You're looking down, video game, 45-degree angle perspective, which you often find in video games. And then here you see another figure and some beautiful trees. So just very interesting work. Two Tezos edition of 51 from this series that is so interesting. They're Dreaming Us. Rin Fish, I think this is a preview. Fungal Fantasyland, I think this is a new one. Kind of almost summerish colors here. Nice kind of blue sky almost. And here are the mushrooms. You can see over top of this almost, not even sure what this pink, it looks like maybe a monster, or you can see like a bear perhaps. And here, almost like these see-through, almost, pastels and everything. Interesting lines going across here too, in the background, in the slight texture to the background there, and there's some kind of flowers and everything. Just beautiful work, as usual from Rin Fish. Mumbleboy, Horizontal Delivery, putting out a lot of work here, which is awesome. Edition of 1, really cool composition. And of course, we saw the guitar from Mumbleboy the other day. So interesting piece here. Again, physical and digital, mixing it all together here, as you can see. We saw it with the guitar. That was a big kind of, revelation of how Mumbleboy is working. Here, 12 Tezos, edition of 1, still available. Horizontal Delivery, cool title. After Sun, Luchan Aguero. This is with the Fake Whale Art Market. And they invited me to do one, so I will put out a work there on the art market at some point here in the next week or so. Luchan Aguero, so here, I believe this is a digital painting. And we will just zoom in up close, or maybe it's both. You see how hard it's getting to tell? It's getting very hard to tell. I think this is digital, or maybe it's both. We know Luchan works with physical, so maybe it started physical as the bottom layer and then digital on top. Very interesting. It says digital painting here, or at least that's 2 different tags, so not super sure. And that is 13 Tezos. It is sold out, edition of 12. Very cool piece here by Rustlin Core. What is the title again? Most Common Creatures Gang Ever. So more creatures here, and you just gotta love it. Totally original and very cool. I love the composition. It's what I loosely call the sketchbook style, where you don't worry about the space, and you really just kind of put stuff almost like a sketchbook, like where the space is kind of rendered to a certain degree irrelevant. And so, yeah, it kind of has that kind of sketchbook style or compositional style, and interesting texture too. of this work. Kind of got a bit of a physical feel, but I'm pretty sure that's digital. So 3 minted so far, and that's on Zora. And here's another one by Rustlin Vyaltsev. Beautiful. So here, kind of looks like a flower. Look at how interesting and original this flower is. Just really cool work here. Maybe it's an older work posting here. Not sure. Beautiful. Almost looks physical, but no, that is digital artwork within this kind of pixelated mask, interestingly. Here is La Delmas. You cannot hide from me, IBU. So this also was in that energy show we were looking at. Beautiful piece. Speaking of interesting spaces, here's kind of like an interior put in the middle of this landscape here, and all these great characters. Even a rocket ship. A beautiful digital painting here from La Delmas. This is on Zora. 20 minted so far. And top minter Tornado Rodriguez, curated by Roses and Kittens, supported by Energy. Very cool. Here is Rat Cloak, who we were mentioning earlier, with another kind of interesting piece. I feel like we've seen a Donald Duck maybe in the past, where we had the Donald Duck. It was almost like the figure wearing the Donald Duck costume. Here it's Goofy. And no writing. Ominously no writing here. This was posted on Instagram. Beautiful digital painting. I couldn't find it. I wasn't sure where it was minted, if it's been minted. Interesting move here at the bottom of the table. Interesting space. Again, almost this impossible space. But again, it's like this idea that the painting is following the needs of the artists rather than trying to, the compositional needs of the artists, rather than trying to be some, copy of the external world proper, right? So just kind of interesting colors too, very muted. The Goofy is kind of wonderfully kind of colorful in its own way, though, ghostly, kind of colorful in a ghostly way. Here's another one, Executed Renaissance, and of course I follow the great Rat Cloak there. Interesting, so minimal, so haunted, and a wild title, Executed Renaissance. And there seems to be perhaps a signature. So another just interesting, provocative painting from Rat Cloak. Here is Wasteman Goldovich, the failed artist number 84, self-portrait Salad Days. And I am going to have to start cutting. We're already at 52 minutes here. I guess I had too many comments at the start. But anyways, so it goes. So here again, another beautiful work by, look at that. Look at that. That is amazing. By Wasteman Goldovich. And again, mixing the textures with the digital, with the flat brushes. Employee of the month, the McDonald's meal. Look at all the work and all of this wonderful, 2 different kinds of textures here. Interesting. And then the burger with the pirate flag there on top of the fries. Classic. And there's a cigarette, the McDonald's cigarette. I think this is an edition of 10. It sold out. Did it sell out? It is 8 Tezos, or 10 at 8. I'm not sure what's going on here, because I see the history. I might need to reload the page, but my internet sometimes can be weird, so I'm not going to do that. Oxens, recycle. Just interesting, what's cool about Oxens Feed is you're going to see all sorts of experiments on it along the way, or maybe this is a preview of another work. Again, this looks like, if I had to guess, looks like effects being put into effects. You take an effect, you put your work in, you get your effect, and then you feed back in the work with effects into new effects. That's kind of what it looks like to me. I could be wrong. And some great kind of horizontal brush, square brush here, getting some great textures to contrast. Right, this large contrast here, this large pixelated brush with this kind of rougher, smaller, harder to discern, less discreet, as Edmarola would put it. And then, pixels, so to speak. And then here over top, just a little bit of sketch, just adding to it. Kind of almost Warholian in its own way. Cool title and everything. Cool work from Oxens. And here, Collector, and I think John Cates posted this, saying that John Cates had just collected this work. This is by Punks Distorted. Kind of a cool work. Maybe feeling a bit more traditional crypto art-esque here, hey? But really nice kind of Petsky ASCII piece. and then so the collector with the hoodie in the gallery there. Pretty cool. 4 Tezos edition of 26, and here is another hoodie. This time kind of like on a wizard figure, and this is Rustlin again. So we saw Rustlin with the flower before and the sketchbook composition. Here's Study on Chain. And again, we see just interesting work here with the figure on the computer, again, kind of referencing seemingly a kind of video game-esque crypto figure in the hoodie. And you see the crypto, dragons, financial chart, the library, kind of a beautiful portrait, really, of your classic kind of crypto art collector or artist or just individual. RJ with a beautiful GIF here. The color, and you gotta love the space painting, let's say in the background where you have the trademark screensaver laptop on the chair from RJ. Really nice piece, 1 of 1. I didn't see where it was minted or if it had been minted yet. Really cool piece from RJ. And here, Tornado is doing a work in progress. We have a few from Object Paint. And of course, I follow Tornado Rodriguez. This is part of the Paint 98. I think they have a contest right now. And here, kind of a wild work of a casket with a flower growing out of it. Really wild work. You see Tornado in action. And here are a few others. This is Katarina Create with another really cool piece here, doing, her same subject matter, but using a different software. This time the Microsoft Paint 98 through Object Paint 98. That's a Tezos. And this stuff sells pretty well. Edition of 10 for 6 sold. And 2 men, interesting sketch here by Turak. This is a 1 of 1. It's kind of a tender piece here. This is done with these kind of, again, Object Paint 98. Kind of a great piece here by Turak, who is always interesting. Skarma, 5 Tezos for this 1 of 1. Nice piece. Rob Boss. So this is hilarious. Bob Ross. So we're going through these kind of Microsoft Paint 98 works here. Here's another one. As you see, Object Paint 98. My tribute to Bob Ross. And here we see this kind of classic Bob Ross landscape, and but done with Microsoft Paint 98. Just awesome. Of course, Bob Ross, that famous PBS artist. I used to paint Bob Ross style on Microsoft Paint with mouse for hours in my childhood. Trying to digitize my physical paintings done with wet-on-wet technique. After like 30 years, I did it again. So this is 5 Tezos, edition of 100. So maybe that's sold out, or maybe that's listed. Card number 1. So this is Barabin. Maybe we might have already seen this one. This is from March 20th, and so card number 1. This is also done with Object Paint 98. Love this kind of, the packaging. Big fan of that. So here you see the toy in the packaging. That is an edition of 5. And here, a couple of works by Ewi. Ewi Draw Me, GM Fam, have a great weekend. So just interesting illustrations here, kind of a surreal illustrator. And this is posted on X. Here's another one. Good night. So interesting. Very interesting. Again, kind of surreal compositions here. Nice color in both. Flora Marquez. Look, Mom. A bird woman who thinks she's mysterious and captivating and sings out of tune. Flora Marquez 2024. I'll make your life easier and spare you from getting to know me. So beautiful work, super original, totally Flora Marquez, and this was just minted and only a Tezos, and it's doing quite well and looks like it's going to sell out here right away. And this was hilarious. Luol Blizz with work here, as you'll see, often does these kind of humorous kind of pieces here. As you see the doll come in, and then the mouse turns into a mouse, and then the guy from The Prodigy comes out. So not what you would expect here. So kind of a funny work here. And again, you're going to see the doll. I mean, pretty hilarious. And the mouse turns into the mouse. Yeah, so hilarious. Hilarious work by Luol Blizz. If I got the name right, let me just pronounce that right. Luol Blizz. Luol Blizz. Anis Abden with a few works here. Very nice. A very nice sunset here. Creme brulee, 3 colors. Only 3 colors. Amazing. And again, these would work brilliantly as, I wonder if they'd work pretty well as Rezo too. I was going to say as a screen print. This is how I spend my weekend, 11 hours of animated expanding circles. Wow. So more beautiful work here from Anis Abden. And here's one more, of course, nature being, I believe, the main subject matter for Anis. So another beautiful sunset. And this came out a week ago. These are all on Instagram. And here, Green Ginger, as we approach the hour mark, lights under the dark. And so another pixel art work here, again, done from this 45-degree angle video game perspective, as you can see. Really cool piece, nice kind of city work, interesting color, edition of 20, very reasonable price at a Tezos 50, mech picking one up, Flexosaurus, very cool, and more pixel art, Brain Dead. This is an edition of 1, and this sold for 20 Tezos, and just a nice, simple pixel artwork. Very cool, with what looks like a skull that is turning. And then we go into glitch ROMs with a really interesting piece by DJ Kuro's Smash 4. Again, these are done, as we saw in the comments, physically. So really just kind of gives it its own feel. And I think also with Kuro, you're getting a second layer where it's going to be processed. It's not just purely a recording of the video game. I think there's another layer on top that is kind of adding texture. Another processing layer, you might say. So very cool, amazing that this is done, again, with physical. Here's Silva Santos with a Nintendo glitch ROM. Kind of abstract, wonderfully abstract, and just kind of, again, you just feel like this is going somewhere. With Silva Santos, Sylvester and Tweety, like you would never know. Very cool, open edition, 1 minted, only a Tezos. 28 days to go. Here's Francoise Gamma Fractal. Really nice piece here. I think this is on Object, and just kind of a different kind of piece for Francoise Gamma, edition of 33, already selling about 10 here at 3 Tezos each. And here's another very cool piece, Hands on Plane. This is an edition of 30, and again, only 1 minted so far, or 1 bought, 3 Tezos each. I thought a pretty cool piece. Pretty cool composition and everything. Just cool concept. Continuing on, Lorna Mills Pomme de terre, which means potato in French. And of course, Lorna Mills gets her names from racehorses, interestingly, and just kind of a fun piece with a child on a swing. And cool colors here too. Nice purple or reddish violet. Kanan, so Renki continuing with the textures, as you can see here. Continuing with the textures. So again, it's tempting to see this as Renki had kind of like similar to what we were seeing before with kind of like just the smooth version. And then you just put it back in the processor, and then I think we get this. Kind of, again, almost to a certain degree, just for the final master, you might say. Very interesting, Kanan. 19 Tezos, edition of 1, so it has been listed, which is unusual. Or at least not very common for Renki. Here's Walk, a la Kazam. So a couple of interesting works here by Walk. As you see, I'm not exactly sure what the references are. So kind of the digital version of the spray paintings, really. A different kind, a digital artwork here, edition of 1. And yeah, usually Walk puts it at a Tezos, at auction, Dan Control, bidding, and then it went for 10. Pretty good. And here's another one. Let's see, and this is at 4 Tezos right now. So a couple of interesting pieces here. Again, I don't know the reference here. Maybe someone knows. Interesting work. Here is Ranixteer, and actually Dan Control picked this one up, part of a newer series. This is on base. See if it loads up here, and just kind of beautiful. Nice gradients here, kind of minimal gradients, minimal art, and this beautiful kind of gray-black in the background. And what is the title? Night 24. Dan Control picking that up on base. Great thing about base, I was mentioning it last time, is you can make a bid and it's not going to cost you $20, right? So very cool. Let me just show you quickly the series here. Here it is. So Night is the series. And so this is a newer series, and as you see, just different colors here. And a few have sold. Again, it's on base here. So just a really cool series. Yeah, you see all these, about 6, actually more, 7, at least 7 sold here, maybe more. So nice work there. Here's Kiro again, Kronos. I don't think we looked at this one. Another kind of what I'd be tempted to call video painting, abstract video painting. Just really nice texture. Love how it's almost still here in the middle. Just really interesting work, edition of 1. Here's the Datura work. I'm not sure if we looked at this earlier. This is on Foundation. Right, this is 3D. We may have looked at this before, but I don't remember, so I put it in. Great color. Love the combination of the purple, the black, and the red. Kind of gives it a futuristic feel, and then you get this awesome kind of 3D sculpture by Datura. Awesome artist. Here's Composition 202 by Klaus and sold for 21 Tezos. It continues, and a beautiful work here. Again, continuing these compositions. As we are now past the 200 mark at 202, edition of 1. And here is Ellie Lowe as we get close to wrapping up here. Kind of dark. Kind of haunted. Yeah. So interesting. Very ambiguous. Very ambiguous work by Ellie Lowe. So all done on Ellie Lowe's own live sound recordings, digital synths, hand paint and photo scan textures, modeling, rigging, VHS and digital glitches, layering, I'm okay, etc. Exactly. 10 Tezos now on secondary. So selling out at 4 Tezos 40. So artists are selling their art. Artists are selling their art. Enjoy. Edition of 10. I actually think the market right now, I was thinking to myself as I was thinking about that earlier comment from Anne, that Anne was pointing out, because she is right, that there's not as many huge sales as we saw 2 years ago. And I think, to me, this is actually what digital art should be going for on the blockchain. It's kind of a newer technology. What we see on Tezos right now, to me, is about the right valuation. It's attractive enough for a collector. It's a real free market where it's attractive enough for a collector to go in and say, hey, I'll spend $10 on a walk digital art piece. This could be worth thousands of dollars one day, but it could just be, that this doesn't, and walk's work will hold its value, but maybe the blockchain thing, who knows, right? So there's a lot of who knows. So that does lower the value of the art. The whole, who knows if this is going to be around or if this is actually going to work. It probably should, right? But, it seems to be a tried, tested, and true model that we have here of buying and selling digital art. I'd argue it's the most credible way of doing it. But nevertheless, there's a lot of experimentation. The museums aren't showing all these artists, so you don't go, okay, knowing that, okay, people are going to care and someone's going to want to buy this 20 years from now. But, I would argue the work speaks for itself. I think someone will want to buy this 20 years from now, especially as something that was made way back in 2024. Here's Bosque Gracias. This is April 19th. So while I was on vacation there, enjoy. Great title. And here, this beautiful, very rich red and juxtaposed with this 1970s photo here, continuing that series. Here's another one, Flowing, a great landscape. And as you see here, just beautiful texture. So this is done a photo of a physical negative, of negatives that have been juxtaposed. Okay, and just really interesting. You have on top a lake, and then here is at the bottom almost like a beautiful landscape, right? The reflection and the water continuing, flowing. A beautiful work here. Looks like it's sold out at 1 Tezos each, bringing in 26 Tezos. The art is selling. Blood Moon. So here's Sarah Kretschmer. So a good friend here in Berlin. Great to see her on the blockchain. And just really cool. Looks like AI artwork here, getting these great, awesome kind of space and almost, curves and everything and gradients and just kind of interesting AI, object. so to speak. And here's, looks like maybe a little bit of collage here, perhaps, but not sure how these are made. Blood Moon, so cool. This is starting to sell. Sarah Kretschmer starting to get her collectors here. Blood Moon for 8 Tezos. Awesome. Here's Skamra. Doing a lot of bears. I thought this one was awesome. This looks like I think this is all AI, but almost looking like pixelated AI. Like, when I see this stuff, when I see the, Edmarola's work, with the layer, what looks like these impossible to make or to replicate kind of areas. And here, I see the same thing here with the pixelation. Like, what I put pixelation in quotes because this is not traditional pixelation. This looks like AI pixelation, right, in the bear. But look how beautiful it is. Look at how interesting and original, So it makes me very bullish on just the art, sales aside. Beautiful work here by Santiago, another really interesting AI artwork. So beautiful color. And then this figure here, maybe a little kid with all of these incredible colors in it, and then maybe throwing a ball. Quite beautiful. And here's Little Cake, Sound On. Mourning the Passage of Time will be my first, it was Fellowship that did the space with cakes, will be my first one-of-one video auction through the daily program, Fellowship Trust, Fellowship AI, starting Monday, May 13th. You can listen to the audio description and peek at my haiku description ahead of time at the link. So here's the link. And let's see, here we go. Quite dramatic, quite beautiful. Nice music too. Very cool music. Great visuals. So cool work by Little Cakes. Check out Little Cakes' profile to see it all. And yes, Little Cakes, I will reach out to you. Let's give it a month, just because you just did that big one. So we'll give it so people. In case people already listened to that one, we'll give it a few weeks, and then we'll do a space. Strange Thing, Hooded Compassion. Look at how textured this is. Another AI artwork. Kind of a Christ-like figure here. With instead of a lamb, though, it looks like a calf. And then you see the halo, and again, this wildly textured AI, as you see. So classic Strange Thing here. Interesting face here, with like almost the painted lips through the mask. Interesting. Here's Mo SHIT. I don't think we looked at this one. Kind of looks like some sort of video game, right? In terms of the cubes, but then the texture is put in. Like, this is just starting to look like something completely different and almost like an anime figure. This is quite the mix of stuff going on here with Mo's work. Just very interesting. And here's No Hygiene. Speaking of interesting, I believe all AI, this work here. So wild AI. And actually, Clown Vamp's going to be on the program this Wednesday. We're going to talk about just recent developments in AI, like what is happening with AI. I see this great experimentation happening. It is really what's exciting me right now. Just wild stuff like we're seeing with No Hygiene there. Into the physicals we go. Bondozo Bandito with the eyes on the flag. Another just kind of wild work here. Pirate ship here, or some old ship. Homies of the Caribbean Fearless Sailors with the Bondozo Bandito eyes there, the trademark. And here's another one. Primitive Poem. All art is useless, future is not bright. So here we have this like cave person writing a poem on the side of a wall. So just wild. That's why I keep showing this work. Like, speaking of unpredictable. Right? Just very unpredictable art from this artist. Very whimsical, too. You make that beautiful ship, and then I'm going to put the eyes on it. Just it kind of amazes me. Not as easy to do as it might seem. Moto 583, Moto Heroes. So we've been looking a lot at Moto 583. Here's a few works. So this looks like black and white work, maybe on gray paper. This is a color work. Almost a sketchbook style, but not. This is still a space. The Blank Gallery exhibition open, so that's in Tokyo. So exhibition in Tokyo, would love to see that. And some of these works aren't that big. Like they'd fit on your wall very easily. This is a piece I drew for Collection Solo. I think this artist is doing really well. Another really cool drawing here. Something about the work that's just super, just kind of exciting. And this work here by Filippo Francocci, actually, which was not loading up. Here we go. Spectre drawing on black paper. So this is a physical, as you can see here. I think it's a massive file, as you can see. So interesting work here from Filippo Francocci. This may have been posted in the community. Not sure. Filippo put a few works in the community. Got on my radar here, and now I happily show this very cool physical artwork, kind of an abstract, I think. And here's Steven Schwarzer, Die letzten Sonnenstrahlen von Havana. So has been experimenting with Riso, really interestingly. So this is a drawing made with, maybe colored pencils, but then turned into Riso, I think. Or wait, is this Farbstift auf Papier? Maybe this is actually just straight up. It kind of looks like Riso, though, doesn't it? It's kind of hard to tell. Has been experimenting with Riso recently. That's what this is, Riso. I can see it in the print. I think may have forgot to put that here, I believe. It's the right size too, which is about A3. And one more here, Adam Lister Studio, the Grady Twins. Again, small. And I was mentioning, I was at the MC Escher show. A lot of small works, you put a huge Passepartout, and it still gives it that kind of significance and importance. Watercolor painting on 140-pound cold-pressed paper. And that's your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Join us on Wednesday, Clown Vamp on the latest in AI. And again, thank you for joining me again. Until next time, take care.